programs. These programs will be funded in the 2012-2013 fiscal year through the reallocation of funds from the current residential grant programs in Exhibit 1. The alternate programs under consideration by staff are enumerated in the attached memo. If it pleases the board, instead of reading the entire memo, which is a few pages, I could give you a summary of the programs that we looked into or that the staff thought might be possible alternatives. As just so you understand what we did, we looked at how we've spent our residential monies over the past few years. The total grant program is $375,000. I think this year we spent our highest amount somewhere in the $140 range. So what we did was we wanted to consider leaving $200,000 for the current residential programs, which will allow us to grow that program, and then take $175,000 and reallocate it into some other programs that will serve the same areas of the CRA, but at your discretion if you choose what we looked at or if you want us to go back and look at some other things. We looked at 4 programs, 2 of them residential and 2 of them commercial. The first program that we looked at is a down payment assistance program for homeowners to buy property. It's a down payment assistance program. We like this program. We have done it in the past in the CRA. We've used HUD funds to give money to people who are buying homes in the Southwest to allow them to afford the down payment. We have all the parameters how to run a program like that. It's one of those things that we like to call shovel-ready. That we could start relatively quickly. It's basically a homeowner who comes in, we would give them a grant up to $10,000 for down payment assistance. They would have to have a first mortgage from a bank. There would be restrictions on occupancy. There's also a restriction on their income levels. But if they occupy the residence for 10 years, at the end of the 10 years, that loan becomes a grant. They don't have to pay it back. If at any time they want to sell the house within those 10 years or some other issues come up, they would have to repay the $10,000. It's something that a lot of communities have done, and it's something that the CRA has done in the past. In fact, you've had to vote recently on the older programs, and one of the things, unfortunately, we didn't put in a sunset clause for the liens on the titles, and we've had to come back to you to get some of those released. In a program like this, we would include that sunset provision so you wouldn't have to come back to the council. The second one is something a little bit different. It's a foreclosure assistance program.
Before you go on to that one, can I make some comments on
Yes, sir,
first?
of course.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The income guidelines, is that the same guidelines that we're using for the residential, the income, or is it different?
We use the same federal guidelines
Okay, so
for income, yes, sir.
Then is it a issue? 10 years is a long time. Is that usually the norm, or is it you doing $1,000 per year? Based, that's when you said $10,000, I guess is the max.
Is the max, yes.
For the down payment, and you said 10 years. So is there any correlation with that, or is that a medium range of 10 years?
In the past, we've done 6 years,
Okay.
But that was because we were following guidelines from HUD, which were 5, and we had added an extra year to ours for 6.
Right.
We used 10 as just a staff discussion. If the board feels that that's a little bit long, I wouldn't recommend anything under 5 years, though, because you don't want people to have the opportunity.
No, right. What I'm saying is I think 10 years is a long time.
Okay.
And that's just my personal opinion. I've seen 5, or I've seen the max I've seen was 7, but 10 years, a decade is a long time to be. That's my personal opinion, but I just want to know where you got that base from. How did you come up with that?
Mr. Williamson, what would make you happy if 10 years is too long?
No. I just want to know his rationale for bringing 10 years. It doesn't matter to me. I think it's an excellent program to even have at all. But at the same time, I just think 10 years is quite a bit. 7 years, if you got bad credit, at least your credit's good after 7. So things get knocked off after 7 years.
Again, if it's the will of the board, we have no objection to 7 years.
I think 7 I don't see a problem with 7 years. I think 10 years is just...
Again, and this is discussion, so if you tell us you like this program, you want us to come back with guidelines that you can vote on and
Yeah.
applications, we can make that change now. This is just a discussion, so.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the years, why we're here at that point? On the amount of years?
On the years, I'm fine with 7, I'm fine with 10, either one of those is fine with me.
Mr. Maldonado?
Same here. I don't have no problem with that.
So we'll come back with 7. Is that, or we'll split the difference and call it 6. But we'll do that.
Why don't you bring it back at 7? That seems to be a number that Ms. Williams is comfortable with, and everybody else seemed comfortable with it.
State where you also need clarification, and this was a menu of items, are you going to want all of them, or are you going to want some of them, and is this one that you definitely want?
Right, this is half of that funding of the 300 and some thousand?
No, there's 175,000 in the pool that we had.
Right, it was cut in half. Before, wasn't it?
No, we
for
had
the residential and the facade program, it was a total of how much?
It was 150,000, I believe, in the emergency grant.
Right.
150,000 in the facade and 75,000 in the landscaping.
Right, so we cut that in half?
We put $200,000 that'll be allocated to those 3 programs.
Okay.
And then $175,000 that we have for you to decide which one, if these are the programs you want to do,
Okay.
how much of that money would you want to put into these programs?
One other question, and here's the houses and this is within the CRE area.
Yes, sir.
There's not like any new development going on to be able to kind of really take advantage of this. I can see if we had new houses being developed in the area, because it comprises of, the southwest and the northwest area primarily, but there's really not been any new buildings or new housing development going up. This will include any home. Is there a certain year, or is it just new homes? What is it?
There has to be a lifetime for the home of 30 years.
Okay.
It can't be less than 30 years.
All right, I'm done.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Shelley?
Just a follow-up on a conversation we had. Just my only concern with this is, again, the compliance and the monitoring, to making sure that we have proper procedures in place to make sure that people aren't buying them, flipping them, that they're not living there for a year or 2 years and then turn around and renting them the rest of the time. Making sure we have some way of annually or biannually or whatever we determine to follow up on these procedures to make sure that everyone's in compliance with these terms. That's my only concern. So as long as we put some sort of procedure in place, then I'm good.
The liens that are the mortgages themselves would put a halt on them flipping and selling. The renting issue, we'd have to look at how the staff on a yearly or bi-yearly system goes and checks.
Okay.
But that's something we can do administratively.
Perfect.
We could also do it through customer service, who has all of the names of the people living in the building.
Perfect. Yeah, as long as there's a procedure, that's the only thing I want to make sure that as part of this plan that gets established.
Okay.
I think, Richard, you had something to add to?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, the NSP houses, for example, we coded them differently, so that any time an NSP house is sold or transacted, immediately we would notify a finance department, because I know that there's stipulations tied with that. So we could do something similar for the CRE, if they get a grant and code it that if the house is going to be, the utilities are going to be under a renter, we could let them know. The second residential program we came up with is foreclosure assistance. As you know, there are a lot of people who are in homes, own their homes, are going under foreclosure. It's not something new in the last few years. This program is designed for people who lost their job for, say, 6 months, got behind on their payments, or have had foreclosure proceedings start on them, but have now the income to meet their mortgage payments, but they're behind and they're going through this process. It's a very complicated process. We'd be looking at getting a professional consultant who is knowledgeable about the foreclosure process and all the different programs that are available to help somebody to streamline or get out of foreclosure. And also there would be some money set aside to help maybe pay some of the fees or whatever, the back money that they owe, up to $5,000. Currently, I know I've talked with procurement, and they're going out and looking for what type of cost that would entail. This is a little bit different. It's not like something we've done in the past, but it is a creative way of helping people stay in the homes that they're already in.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In coming up with these programs, and let me thank you for being, taking it by the horns and really being creative. But how many foreclosures do we really have in the northwest and southwest area that encompasses CRA? Have you all did any research to see, basically how many houses are in foreclosure that could probably benefit from this, if there is any?
That is a very good question. Most of our information is anecdotal, so we haven't done a market analysis of how many foreclosed homes there are in the CRA.
Yeah, because the CRA is such a small area, kind of, within the city. I'll be interested to see whenever you do some type of study to see, if this program can really be beneficial, persons could take advantage of it, because I think what we're trying to do is put monies back out there into the community to be able to be used and not being stagnated like in some of the other programs that we have. So I'd be interested to know how many houses in the CRA area are in foreclosure that perhaps will probably be able to take advantage of this, because it may not be many at all, and we probably can still fund it, but with a minimal level, and then use that money to do some other projects with.
Again, that's definitely a possibility. I agree that, when we came up with these, we listened to the people that come into our office and the people who've used our grants in the past and what they're looking for. But a detailed quantitative analysis has not been done, and that's something we can pursue if that's what you'd like us to do. You can look at minimally funding something like this, or you can wait until we get the cost of a consultant and we can come back with you.
Right.
It's just
that was my next follow-up.
right.
Can I, when you talk about a consultant, what do you, and I know this is still fresh out of your mind in presenting this, but what are we talking about? Somebody, I read in here 10, maybe 15 to 20 hours
Right.
a week or something of that.
Someone who would come to the CRA building, use our, one of our desks there, and be available for anybody in the community who wants to come in that's going through foreclosure, and sit with that person, and they would look at their case and look at what their options are. There are a lot of non-for-profits that have been trying to help people who are going through the foreclosure process, and there are so many different government programs and that's separate from dealing with the private entities that you have to deal with. So this person could look at the individual situation, because everybody's situation is slightly different, and try to come up with a plan to keep them in the home.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Fairclough McCormick.
Thank you. Through the chair. Rick and I had some conversation on these various programs last week, and I would just like to thank you for coming up with these programs. I don't think they were just pulled out of thin air. They were strategically put in place to respect the priorities and the need for this community. In regards to foreclosure, I had a conversation with you because I said on the east side, that's where we got hit the hardest as far as foreclosure. But can you just highlight or elaborate on our conversation about how foreclosure would come into play in the southwest and on the northwest side?
I believe that you are seeing people who, at the height, took equity out on their homes, and so they took second mortgages. A lot of these homes were bought many, many years ago. The ones that survived Andrew, they may not have had a large mortgage put on them or any mortgage at all. But a lot of people took equity out of their home during the height, and now they're being foreclosed. We had one person come before you to get their lien released because they were done with all of their mortgage. They were done, and in 05, 06, they took out a second mortgage and they defaulted on that. So that's where, yes, most of the new homes and most of the new mortgages are on the east side of town, but there are people in the southwest that did get equity taken out, and that's what's causing them to be in foreclosure now.
Well, yeah, I understand that. Yeah. I'm very clear about that. My only issue was how many in your market, one or two people, but how many will really benefit from it?
Sure. Mr. Shelley.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. One is on the counselor issue, because Councilman Williams raises a good point that if we determine that there's not a large demand for this particular program, I think it'd be good to have the program because, again, they show up and we can help them. But for the counselor purposes, if we're going to be paying someone on a weekly basis and only one person comes in a month, then those again are funds that maybe aren't being as well utilized as they could be. So the only concern I have with the counselor full-time, until we know that this is going to be utilized by a lot of residents, I would have some concern about just hiring somebody and having them sit in an office with nothing to do. Now, if we connect them with other government programs in addition to the foreclosure that they could help people work on, that would make maybe some more sense to me. So that's just a point to be raised about the counselor. But as far as the program itself, I think it's good to have. But that leads me to my second question, and that is there going to be a pool of money for all of these programs, and maybe one year there's more foreclosure assistance than there is, start a business, or are we going to allocate certain pools of money to each individual program? Because that's another, that ties back into Councilwoman's question, is that if there's pools, then maybe, how much do we allot to this one versus say if there's just one big pool where all four of these, if we choose, or 4 or 5 of these, if we choose them, we'll pull from until it's all gone and then there's no more programming left.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to make mention of is that when this issue came up about the balance of the funds, what we had promised you is that we come back with a collection of ideas. And because they're on the page doesn't necessarily mean we're saying you should approve all of them. In fact, there's an argument to be made that if you approve all of them and we fund all of them, in some of the categories you may be minimizing the impact you could have with a particular program. So the policy decision really is yours as to whether you want all these 4 and you want us to spread the money out in a particular year, or do you want to take most of the money and focus it on one specific program, the one in particular where, as you talk about the site development assistance or the startup grant, those are the kind of programs where if you only have a little bit of money in there, it's going to be very difficult to have that program have much impact. On the other hand, every dollar that goes into one of those would be one that wouldn't necessarily go into the others, in which case, so tonight you could decide we're only going to do one of the 4, or you want 2 or 3 or 4, and then you can also decide how much of the resources you want to apply to any of them.
Okay, and that was kind of my question. Do we have a plan yet? Is this up for discussion? And the other thing too is, I guess if you don't allocate to each one, is it the law of supply and demand? In which case, if there's more demand for the startup company, we're going to deplete that. Almost all the funds may go toward that, or do we need to break it up into pools? I don't know. That question is just kind of an open-ended.
I don't think, and I think that might be a question for finance, but I don't think there would be any restriction on putting a pool that all of these different programs draw out, other than administrative, purchase orders on how we track where the money goes. But you could have one pool of money, and as people come in, we just draw down for those specific programs. And on some of these programs, like we do the commercial grants already, we come back to you with the applicant. We come directly to the board and say, final approval, not final approval. So
the only thing is understanding what your priorities are and which of these are important is significant for us, in that if in fact you say we really want to deal with the foreclosure issue, then that would be something that we'd have to start the outreach program and focusing our attention to that. If, on the other hand, it's to attract a company into the district, then that would be a whole different thing. And having a pot of money just sitting there without a definite idea of how you want to spend it, then makes it more of a reactive process than a proactive one.
And my priorities would be the last 2. The last 2 versus the prior 2 we just spoke about would probably be my priority. But also I know that the reason that we came up with these programs was that we had leftover money from, say, the facade improvement program and those types of things that didn't get utilized. And so it seems that if it was one pool of money, then we'd still focus on those of trying to encourage those programming. But anything that came from these others would pull, and so at the end of the day, hopefully we get all the money spent for good purposes. But I don't know that there's a right answer. I'm just asking the question, so I'll take the guidance that you guys give us.
Mr. Maldonado.
Just a question, maybe the manager can answer this. And what was the program that we initiated, I believe it was a year or so, where there was a company that was tracking all the foreclosures in the area? Do you recall the program?
What's he called?
And just in reference to what Councilman William was bringing up, was where, how are we locating these individuals?
We entered into a contract with a company that was going to keep track of foreclosures. They were going to charge a fee, half of which was going to go to them, I believe, and half of which was going to come to us. And they were going to provide it was going to be an inventory of the foreclosed homes.
Okay.
And that way that the city could keep track of it. And so when I read the agenda item, I thought of that too, but I haven't heard about it since.
No, I saw them at the League of Cities, and I know they've done...
I know that we came before the council, but I don't know.
And it was, I guess I was, just listening to the conversation, I guess, maybe this would be a tool that we could use to help identifying those.
We'll check into it. The program doesn't ring a bell, but we'll figure it out.
Check with Jose Fuentes, he's their lobbyist,
Okay.
and also our lobbyist.
It's always good.
Ms. Waldman.
We did do that, and I happened to see them, and I told them they were doing a terrible job. So, I expected a report every month, at least every month. I expected a report every couple of weeks, but it was quite a bit of money, and that was when Marlene was here, I know. So, it was,
A couple of years.
I don't know if it was a couple of years. How long has Marlene been gone?
It's been at least a year and a half.
It's been a while. Time gets away from us. But they were trying to sell me their program, and I said, I know who you are. You already work for me. You don't even know you work for me. Not me, us. But if I could, Vice Mayor, I have a couple of things. I'm sorry, but I work, and 5 o'clock's hard for me, so I'm just going to start. Hopefully I'm not redundant. The down payment assistance, the silent seconds, there's no payment, right?
If you remain in the...
I call them silent seconds because
Right.
if they remain in the home over a period of years, then it's forgiven, correct?
Right. We're looking at 7 years to forgive it.
7 years?
We had 10 written in here, but after discussion, we're gonna bring that down to 7.
Okay, but there's no payment.
Not
Correct.
not if you stay in the home and follow all of the parameters, no
But
payment.
there's no monthly payment?
No.
Okay, just as a caution, in many cities, and I know, I believe we even had it here in our own city at one time, I can't remember through the CRA, but it's very hard to monitor these silent seconds and to make sure that they are still in their home. Richard, do you remember? It was when Rick Stotts was here. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know as an experience with other cities in real estate, it's very hard to monitor. And I want to know if there's some kind of system already intact that's going to be monitored.
We have a system in place for when they want to sell, because we have a lien on the title. What we need to do is make sure that we put the sunset provision, so if they do reach the requirements, they don't have to come back to have it released. Richard just came up with a great idea that they use with the NSP properties, that they're coded a certain way in customer service, so if somebody changes their name,
Excellent.
we get notified. So I'm going to sit down with Richard and kind of work out a program. If this is something that you choose to fund, we'll come up with a system to make sure that we know they're not renting it.
Well, that's excellent, because that was my next point. That, so often they go in there, they get the property, and then they rent it out. And so, Richard, that's great if y'all can work together on that. My next issue was the foreclosure assistance. I agree with my colleagues that that you may not always have 15 to 20 hours of clients that are going to take up that amount of time. Also, the criteria I had some questions about, because it says owner must have been unemployed for 6 months or more. Then you go down and it says applicant must provide that he or she has recovered from the hardship and can afford the letter arrangement, and letter from a new employer and the last 4 pay stubs. So it's a little redundant that way, as far as when somebody gets that far down and the foreclosure, and you see where I'm coming from?
The thinking on this...
And they have to have $1,000 to put down towards their own money.
The thinking
and a credit score. So
right. I know. I've seen programs in other cities where they were trying to get homes at a certain level of income into apartments. It was a requirement of building an apartment. But when they went to those apartments, and they applied, their credit scores didn't meet the requirements. So it was very hard to get people to fill. The thinking on the 6 month was that they had lost their job, got behind for a certain amount of time, but regained employment so they can actually pay their bills, but they've just gotten behind the 8 ball. And this will help them streamline the process, and we'd have some funding that we could help them pay some fees or some interest if they had to. So that's why they had a hardship, but now have income.
And I'm so sympathetic, trust
Right.
me, I am, but, you know, unless you go through the process of a loan modification, which takes upwards sometimes to 18 months to get, I mean, it's a long, arduous process, and unless you have that loan modification, you're so far behind, and there's so many fines and so many fees, that the $5,000 isn't even going to scratch the surface. So I think that, you know, those funds might be better used. I know I've been begging, and I know that my colleagues have been begging for years for some business incentives, and I really like the idea of the site development assistance and the business startup grant. My question with the business startup grant is, I know I've started businesses, and you have to have an X amount of dollars over here in a pile, because you just don't open the door and make money. You know, it takes a while to do that. So I always worry that if you need that basic assistance, you might not ever be able to recover anything.
I haven't.
And I'm happy with all this, Rick. I'm complimenting you really, but I mean, it's just I have these questions. I want to make sure.
When it comes to something specifically like the business startup grant, we're talking small businesses. Some people may be a business out of their home or whatever that small business may be. There is inherent risk involved. 50% of all small businesses fail in the first year. 75% of them fail in the first 3. If you get past the first 3, you're doing pretty well. There is inherent risk of you giving $1,500 to somebody and they go out of business in 6 months. I cannot stand here and tell you you're not going to, there may not be somebody who comes up and says, wow, you gave $5,000 away and half those places are no longer here. It's a possibility. But it's also a numbers game. If you can't have 5 businesses succeed if you didn't have 10 try. So that's going to be an issue for the board to at least understand. You're going to give money to somebody who within a year is no longer going to be in business.
And I agree with you completely on that, and I know a lot of small businesses, and in today's economic times, there's a lot of home businesses now. People are working from home, they're doing websites, they're selling things, you know, telemarketing, I mean, you know, they're doing a lot of things. So I understand that, I mean, and I love that concept. I guess my only question is that foreclosure assistance, you know, I've just seen so many thousands of people go through this scenario, and it's so difficult, and I just don't think that money is going to solve the problem. Because most of the mortgage payments with the insurance and everything else that's added in is, you know, over $1,000 anyway, and then, you know, you get 4 or 5 months behind, and then you start taxing, you know, tallying up the fees and all the other things that come with it. You know, I think there's a lot of programs out there already for the loan modifications and different things, but I just I would like to see this money divided up into the areas that I think there could be a difference. And I think there could be a big difference with the business setup. I think that's excellent, because we've been begging for some sort of incentives to offer people to do just this, especially in the CRA community. So those are just my thoughts, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Through the chair, would you like me to go through the last 2, or Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I think if we watching this go through, I was going to ask if you guys, because I kind of came in a little late, did you guys start I saw that, I wasn't sure if you got over to the other...
No, we started with the down payment, went to foreclosure,
okay.
and then we're going to start.
Sorry.
No.
So I just was going to ask if you know, want to work on that.
The Site Development Assistance Program, this is basically if you're going to come into the CRA and you want to develop a parcel, or you want to develop a business in a current structure, we would assist by paying the cost of impact fees, permit fees, building renovation, and the permit fees, architectural plans, tax abatements, these sort of things. we hear a lot about how people have to come in and they get charged all these fees, and it's a barrier to entry. I like this program because for the majority of these things, we can pay the city directly. If we're going to pay the impact fees on a project, we're not taking money and giving it to the developer, we're giving it to the city. So it's cleaner for us, and in the end, the money, stays in the family, sort of, so. And this is something where we could do large deals. If somebody comes in and they want to develop a 5-acre site, you can create a lot of jobs. You could really, Gemma could really use something like this to offer when she's looking at corporations that may want to come in. So this is about us helping a developer or a business owner come in and navigate the different fees that they have to pay in the city of Homestead. The final one, again, we mentioned briefly, was the Business Startup Grant. I like this one as well because there are a lot of fees that you have to pay when you start your business, when you incorporate, licensing fees, business licensing fees, filing fees, IRS fees, occupancy permit, utility deposits. I like that one as well because it's our utility. These are the things that we can either reimburse them or pay directly to the city if you want to just focus on the city fees, which is a possibility. Again, it's cleaner and the money stays in the family. So this is something that small business owners, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it does impact them. I think there are a few people on the board who've opened their own business and they know what I'm talking about. So this, for a minimal amount of money, you could help a number of small business owners.
Go ahead.
I agree with the Councilwoman Walden where, we need to start investing in the area of business. The $1,500 might not seem like a lot, but you have a lot of the small home offices that are starting to boom in our area. I know because for what I do, I set up those small offices, and there is a lot of opportunity for anyone who's looking to go in this direction where they don't have to travel out of Homestead, stay here because of family, what have you. These small businesses are really starting to pop up, and this money, that's $1,500, could go towards that and help them out. But again, disagreeing with Judy here is that the foreclosure, I guess what I want to say is the money part. If we could start focusing more on the business area, I'd definitely like to look, would be my recommendation, the area I'd like to look into.
In full disclosure, I do want to point out there's a creative wrinkle in this one program that, in discussions with Gemma and the staff this year, if you're opening up a business, we could do the $1,500. If you're a resident of the CRA and you want to open up a business somewhere else in the city of Homestead, we'll help you as a resident of the CRA. So if you're looking to help your situation out by being an entrepreneur, since you're a resident of the CRA, it's not been done before, but I think it's something that
And
isn't
you reach it. You're going to give them money from the CRA to go somewhere else.
It was an idea.
All right.
As long as it's in the city of Homestead and they're a resident, they can't open it up in
But if
Kendall.
we're going to, I'm sorry. If we're going to begin to turn the CRA around to eliminate blight in the CRA area, how does that go together?
Well,
I have a philosophical difference with that.
and I totally understand. That's why it's something that I wanted to make sure we all understood was written in here. Because it was an idea that we had. If the board is uncomfortable, it's not an issue to take it
I
out.
don't know about anybody else. But
So it was just a thought that we thought you might want to discuss.
I would be comfortable with that if the funds aren't being used down there and there's stuff left over. I don't think we need, in my eyes, I don't think just because somebody lives there and wants to go open up a business somewhere else, that they take the money and leave down there. I think we need to, in my eyes, we need to keep the money over there. That's just my thought on that.
Mr. Shelley.
No, I agree.
I'm being queued after Mr. Shelley.
Yeah, I'm echoing everyone else's comments. That was one of the things I had on my list to bring up, and I had a chance to think about it after I looked it over, and I agree with Councilman Williams and Vice Mayor Burgess, and that is I think that if they're opening a business within CRA, then that's fine, keep the monies there, but just because you live there, then the monies are now leaving the CRA and going outside for other purposes. And I guess the theory is, it trickles back to to the operator, but I don't think it's a good enough direct connection. So for me, I'm with my colleagues, and I don't agree with adding that to the programming.
Mr. Williams?
And I know that this is just discussion, but you hit me with this one.
I wanted to spice things up a little.
I had enough spice today.
Yes, that's true. Yes, you have, sir.
I guess because the mindset and of what the idea of the people that live in the area already thinks that money comes for that area and goes somewhere else.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's already a mindset that's instilled into the residents and persons who live over there, that monies that come directly to the CRA, they believe, even though it's not true, they believe that monies go other places other than the area that is intended.
And
I would not want to validate what their concern is or give it any, even the illusion that that exists.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Ms. Walton?
Since, Mr. Williams, you have my condolences. I know what kind of day you've had today. I'm going to agree with Mr. Williams.
I think there's valid direction that we would, if you so choose that will be stricken from the program.
Yeah.
Are you using the nonprofit organization within the community that deal with a lot of the residents of the CRA? Get this information out to them?
Well, as these are,
What's your outreach program?
right, if you look at the different programs, the commercial ones are more like things that we have in office that when we hear of developments coming in, or if the economic development manager is going out specifically looking for somebody to come in, we have the ability to do this. The small business startup grant and the home foreclosure, we're going to have to come up with a marketing plan where we're dealing with not only the real estate people in the community that do their business in the CRA. We're also going to have to talk with the nonprofits, the church groups, to get this information out there. We've slowly seen the residential program build on word of mouth. And when it's only 2 years old, so, we've always tried to kind of gear ourselves up to make sure that we work out all the kinks with something. But this is something we'd have to bring into the community, bring into the ministers, let everybody know that this is happening. We'd have to put ads in the newspaper and that sort of thing.
Whatever, programs, organizations that you're working on, maybe pass that information to us so we can continue to pass it along as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can do that.
You're done. I'm not even giving you the floor. Go ahead.
He's threatening me. I just, so that you know where I stand, just real quick, I like the down payment assistance program. Love the way you're going to monitor it with the utilities department. And I like the site development assistance and the business startup grant. I think the money might be a waste with the foreclosure assistance because there's so many programs out there and the banks are really trying to work with people now. And they see what's happening down the pipeline. So I would like to see that money put into the other three things. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's move this along. We're all in agreement that the down payment assistance program is a good program. We're going to move it from 10 years to 7 years. Is that consensus?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to see, and I'll put this out there, with the foreclosure assistance, I would like to see some numbers of people that we might be able to affect before we just strike it from the table altogether. Perhaps when you bring it back, if you could bring some numbers or more data, if the board chooses.
Right, because I think that's what we asked them before.
Right. Sure. And that's the director. Bring us back some solid data and let us know that we are going to be able to help people before we strike it altogether.
So we can keep this sort of like the CIP where it's not stricken completely off the radar, but just to get a little bit more data.
My only suggestion is that when that data is brought back here, that be real data and not data that's in Leisure City or
Absolutely.
It has to be within the CRA.
Right.
And that's going to, I found the one report I did get from the company that we had hired and given that money to, I think it was like $15,000, 15 or maybe even more. So,
They may have the data for us once we...
but they didn't have data for Homestead. It was all these areas. So I mean, that's going to take some work to pinpoint it down to that CRA.
And Rick, what was the dollar figure that you had determined to put towards the foreclosure assistance?
We didn't put any dollar figures. We hadn't put dollar figures other than, limits on some of the grant, the 10,000 on the foreclosure, on down payment, 5,000 on foreclosure, and 1,500 on the small business.
Right, okay. And I think we're all in agreement that the other two are fine? Okay.
With the stricken part of the residents
Correct.
outside, yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Motion to move the minutes of September 11th. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, hang on. We've got Ms. Waldman.
There's in the, under the tab 1, the minutes reflect that I say, I think it's on page 7. Page 7, the last paragraph, it says Board Member Waldman, Board Member Waldman explained the city almost, and it's supposed to be lost its CRA, and the word lost isn't in there. However, the next set of minutes, that's within this CRA meeting, it's corrected. So I just want to make sure that it reflects the same way. Okay? Because that's kind of important.
Duly noted. Okay. All those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. New business, tab 3, car number 626.
Requested action is approve the resolution. Staff recommends that the CRA Board approve a resolution authorizing the contract between the Community Redevelopment Agency and the Historic Town Hall Museum, Inc. for professional services provided at the Historic Homestead Town Hall Museum. The contract amount is $25,000 per year. The terms of the engagement are included in the agreement in Exhibit 2. On September 11, 2012, at the September 11, 2012 meeting, CRA staff was directed to present to the board an agreement between the Historic Homestead Town Hall Museum, Inc. and the CRA for services provided at the Historic Homestead Town Hall Museum. The last agreement between the CRA and the Historic Homestead Town Hall Museum was renewed in FY 2010 for $14,400. After meeting with the museum director and looking at the administrative needs of the museum's operation, the staff recommends an increase in funding of $10,600 to a total of $25,000.
It's been moved by Ms. Waldman. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Eckhoff. Thank you. Any discussion from the members?
Question, in reading through the minutes, I couldn't find, I wasn't here, but I couldn't find, I guess there were problems, it had become problematic with the structure of payment, that we were giving it based on what you said, that we were paying quarterly. But I guess when Mr. Jensen...
The discussion that was held was up until, I think, 2 years ago, the Old Town Hall Museum, Inc. was under an operating agreement where they were paid quarterly, a certain amount. I think it was $5,000 or something, whatever it was, each quarter. And then the contract lapsed, and as did all the other contracts with Main Street, with the Arts South, and the other contracts that we had. And everybody went into the nonprofit committee system. However, at direction of the board, there was consensus that they wanted to go back to the operating agreement relationship with the Town Hall Museum.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Tab number 4, car 642, Southwest 4th Street improvement. Is there a motion? Move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Staff?
The requested action is a motion to approve bid. Staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the 4th Street Improvements bid award to the lowest responsive bidder, FHP Tectonics Corp., in the amount of $926,177.42. On April 3rd, 2012, the CRA Board amended the fiscal 2011-2012 CRA budget to allocate $5.3 million to capital projects. The 4th Street Improvement project was budgeted at $1,550,000.
Any questions from the board?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williams.
When do they start?
I'd have to look through the bid document to see what the time limit is. I think I think it's a 30 days mobilization from award, but I'll have to, 2 weeks? I stand corrected, 2 weeks from notice of award, sir.
So 2 weeks, what starts happening?
And 2 weeks, they're supposed to mobilize. They need to
Mobilize people together.
We have a pre-construction.
What's going to be done, and I'm asking this because I think it's important to know so that when things are done on 4th Street, that the residents know, the roads are going to be, tell me what's going to happen.
We're going to once we give the award letter, I think, Jerry, if I misspeak at any point, please jump in. They have 10 days after the notice of award to fulfill any of the paperwork that they have to present, at which point we will have a pre-construction meeting where we will look at their construction schedule. Once we have that, then they have 2 weeks from after that 10 days, if I'm correct, to mobilize. But we will have a schedule that we can disseminate to every member of the board, and we can start giving out the information to the community about when, if there are going to be any street blockages or anything like that.
How long the project is expected to take?
The project is expected to take... This one wasn't as long as the Kinley Horn. Julio, was it 8 months? I can get you the exact time and disseminate to the board. I just off the top of my head, I don't remember.
And I know the board looked over the drafts of the work. Can you email that to me?
Yes, sir, we can email it to you.
What it would look like?
Sure.
Renderings, drawing?
Yes, sir.
Because I know that they voted on it. I think I wasn't here to participate in that.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying 8 months?
I believe that's what we had, but I will double check. It's a very, very long portion of Southwest 4th Street, so the length of it is what's going to make it a little bit longer.
Question for Mr. Brea. Is this the same firm that did Mallory Drive?
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Another question that is related to 4th Street but not with this project. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Who does the landscape for 4th Street?
Who does the maintenance of the landscape for 4th Street? Yes. I believe that is not Lawnkeepers, Dennis. That's Valley Quest.
Valley Quest.
Well, they do a horrible job. I don't know what are y'all paying them? They must, because they don't do crap. Flower beds, or it's just ridiculous.
Okay.
I'm not jumping on staff. I'm just telling you that you all need to look at their performance, because it's definitely not.
Well, Dennis and I will go out tomorrow. We'll walk the entire length of it, and we'll get them Valley Quest out there. And if there's anything specific that you see in any of the streets, you let us know.
I guess before I trash them, what are they supposed to be doing in their scope of work? You know, because I don't know what we're paying them to handle that, but it must be not much, based on what I see.
Councilman Williams, say we're supposed to, edge, weed eat, and do any tree trimming, and clean up and mow the right-of-way.
Okay, but what about the flower beds and all? Who takes care of that?
CRA paid for that when our other CRA director was there, because before there was nothing there, and they put the flowers in, CRA paid for it.
I do believe there's two sections.
But nobody, once it's put in there, the flower bed, there's no maintenance of it. It's just, that's impossible, because when I look at the medium on Campbell or any other, the right-of-ways, they're out there making sure that it's impeccable. They ain't doing that on 4th Street.
Well, we'll go out and we'll take them and we'll see.
Take my word for it.
No, absolutely.
Take my word for it.
No, absolutely. We'll rectify that situation.
Yeah, because it's ridiculous. I just don't understand it. I'd like to know what we're paying, because obviously they're not following what you're saying. That's not what I see. And then I need to know how often are they supposed to be doing it.
Okay, we have that schedule. We can send the cut schedule.
We do the cuts. That was 21 days. It's like every 2 weeks, And then when the
rainy
season comes, it's 3 times a week.
What time y'all getting in the morning?
Let's see,
I get in at 6 in the morning, sir.
I'll meet you out there at 8.
8 o'clock?
Okay.
Okay.
Right down 4th.
All right.
Start right as soon as you come.
4th and 6th Avenue?
Flagler, we'll start at Flagler and work our way down.
Okay.
You're not allowed
You
to
don't
drink
mind,
any
Mr.
coffee.
City Manager?
No coffee for you in the
No
morning.
coffee, that's right.
I'll contact the superintendent, Jose, who we work with from Valley Crest to meet us out
Yeah,
there.
you get the superintendent down there, because I want to hear his explanation.
Yes, sir.
You have had a bad day.
This is a good day.
All right, yes, sir, Mr. Maldonado.
Just a quick question on who's overseeing this project? Are the individual companies going to be reporting to you?
They're going to be reporting, one of the construction management part of this, we're working with the designers on getting the quotes for how much that's going to cost us. One of the bids that we sent out for the Flagler lot came in higher than expected, so we're just looking at our funding mechanism to make sure that we have enough money to move forward. So that's why we're bringing these two to you and not the Flagler lot at this point, because we have to do some value engineering on the Flagler lot and rebid that project. We'll come back to you with the project management portion of this a little bit later, but we're going to make sure, working together with Public Works, that this project meets all of its deadlines. And this is the same issue with Kinley Horn, the next project we're going to talk about.
And the reason I ask is because I know in the past that they've always, the question they'll ask us on the street when we're about the town is, how far along are we, when does this happen, and so if there's something that we could give back to the residents and those who are affected by even the work that's being done, I would think it would be good for us to have that information on hand, if possible.
And we can give you periodic updates on the scheduling of each one of the projects.
I mean, just even if it's just send you a handoff or it's a PDF or something, just so those who are concerned or will have the need to look at the information could have a source to go to.
Okay.
Other than let me just call Rick and find out where we're at, which we don't mind, but.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Brea.
I can elaborate a little bit on the reporting portion. Similar to what we did in Maury Drive, in jobs that are very short in time to get them done, we require the project managers to provide us with weekly reports, basically telling us an update of what's going on out there on a weekly basis, and we can then disseminate that information out too.
Did that information get to us on the Maury project? I know we got an email saying we're behind or something like that, but as you received it, were you?
No, usually we don't disseminate that information, but if you need it, we have it and we can give it to you whenever you need it.
Thank you. All those in favor of tab 4? Aye. 6 aye. Any not in favor? Thank you. Moving on to tab 5, car number 643. Is there a motion?
Move it.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Maldonado. Staff report, please.
The requested action is a motion to approve. Staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the Washington Avenue Phase 2 bid award to the Redland Company in the amount of $1,369,049. The Redland Company received the local vendor preference and has provided a best and final offer lower than the lowest offer submitted by the non-local vendor, FHP Tectonics. On April 3rd, 2012, the CRA Board amended the fiscal 2011-2012 CRA budget to allocate $5.3 million to capital projects. The Washington Avenue Phase 2 project was budgeted at $1.9 million.
Thank you. Any questions for the staff?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Redland Company, when you starting?
Tomorrow.
Good. How many jobs will you be?
Well, most of our crews live in
Pinky Munns, Redland president and owner. Most of our crews live in Homestead, so we don't anticipate any new jobs, but we've got plenty of them sitting home right now.
That you got?
Yes.
Good, okay.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? None heard. Any reports? Public comments? Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Moved and seconded. Adjourned at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Everybody leave. We're going to be quick here tonight.